Hey, this is James, the founder of Sweetfish Media. If you've listened to B2B Growth for a while, you probably have an idea of what we're passionate about. Loving people really well, a constant pursuit of learning, and inspiring people to own their careers. With all the craziness happening with this virus, we are incredibly fortunate to be in the business of podcasting. So many B2B brands are looking for alternatives to their in-person events that are being canceled, and our business is growing as a result. Please don't mishear me on this because I'm not saying this to brag. It is heartbreaking, the economic impact this is having on so many businesses. But being in the business of podcasting, the demand for what we do has increased. And because of that, we're looking to hire really talented people to help us serve that demand. So if you like what we're all about at Sweetfish and you're looking for a great career opportunity, hit us up. There's a link in the show notes where you can apply today. I'm really looking forward to meeting you.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today is another episode in our Behind the Curtain series, which is normally James, our founder and CEO, and myself riffing on what we're learning, what we're doing here at Sweetfish as we continue on our own growth journey. I'm actually joined by not a new member of the Sweetfish team, but a new voice to the Behind the Curtain series. I'm joined by our Chief Operating Officer, Bill Reed. Bill, how's it going today?
It's going well, Logan. Thanks.
Awesome, man. You bring so much wisdom, so much insight to our team, and such a great addition to our leadership team that, we've just been talking for a while that we've got to do this. And I want to share some of your wisdom with the team. For folks listening to this who aren't as familiar with you as the rest of the team here at Sweetfish, James, myself, the rest of the Sweetfish team, give listeners a little bit of background on yourself and what your role is currently here at Sweetfish.
Sure. So as Logan said, I am Chief Operating Officer here. I've served in that role a number of times, but really my background is very entrepreneurial. Starting in the early 90s, had an agency for 10 years, and have done lots of things. The thing I love about what I do is not necessarily the subject matter or the expertise, but just the business of business. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy Sweetfish so much, because I'm working with a really talented group of young people. And so when Logan refers to wisdom, what he usually refers to when it's the mic's not on is gray hair. So I bring that as well.
Hey, there is a lot to be valued in that gray hair. Well, Bill, we're going to be talking about this phrase that you've talked about before. I've heard you mention that no matter whether you're a startup, you are a Fortune 500 company, you are an early stage startup, a mid-market company, whatever it is very important that you fire like you hire. I almost said that backwards, but just to say that again, you fire like you hire. And this is something that you've experienced here at Sweetfish as you've had your hands in culture and people ops. That's now fully on Ryan Drawdy's plate here on the team as you focus more on operations and those sorts of things. But here at Sweetfish, as well as through many different business ventures that you've led or founded, you've been involved in hiring, in letting people go, all these sorts of things. And I know this is something that's been a lesson you've learned over the years. So I'm excited for you to share with listeners about it. Tell us a little bit about why this concept is so important to you. I think the first thing is you've noticed kind of this trend in hiring, if we back it up, because before we talk about firing well, you've got to kind of compare it to your hiring process. Tell us a little bit about where you kind of flip some of the priorities, and we do here at Sweetfish, versus the way most people look at their hiring process, and what are the top priorities that go into that hiring process?
Sure. So for a lot of organizations, they do the hiring thing pretty well. They take time. They have a process attached to that. Actually, it's a lot of fun. If you've done it, it's a lot of fun to invite people into the hiring process. And so my contention is that while we do a fairly good job at hiring, man, we don't do a very good job at the dismissal process at all, generally speaking.
Yeah. The other thing that we talk about a lot when it comes to hiring, you've noticed at organizations of various sizes that there's usually this prioritization of skill set and experience over culture, over potential. Tell us a little bit about where you kind of see most organizations going and where they might want to reprioritize some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we all know people are at the heart of our organization. They're the most important thing. And we sometimes joke that managing is awesome except for the people. So along with some blessing comes some challenge with people. And so one thing that I've focused on in the hiring process is not just the skill set and experience, but the heart and the culture, the heart of the person and the culture of the company, and how well we match. That matters more to me and really always has. I often say around the office, good people make their way. And so I think that's true despite inadequate systems, despite dysfunctional communications, good people make their way. So when I'm hiring, that's what I'm looking for, good people. And that depends less on their skills and experience in my book than it does the fit with the company, the culture, and the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that cultural fit is really important. As the old saying goes, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And you can try and enforce a culture, but it's really made up of the people and the hearts of those people. So baking that into your hiring process. So as we kind of compare these two, you mentioned something a second ago, Bill, that people put a lot of thought and process and intentionality into their hiring process versus the firing process tends to be very reactionary. And that's where you think a lot of organizations kind of miss the mark here and do themselves a disservice, right?
Yeah, for sure. The amount of time and effort that's spent on the hiring strategy definitely needs to be spent in terms of strategizing an exit. I don't know if you personally have ever been dismissed from a job, but it's a pretty traumatic experience. And so I always keep that in mind. And we have a very specific process in place that we want to give somebody every chance to succeed. And a lot of times from a distance, what I've seen is that the manager, the supervisor works and works at trying to take things forward. And at the end of it, they fail, not necessarily because the employee or the team member fails, but because they don't really know how to manage or to move somebody from struggling to success. And so they get tired of that. And pretty soon what happens is disappointment, insufficient performance, and then one day, boom, we're done. And so it usually ends up being a quick reactionary decision. And that's most unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, we've talked a little bit about, why you should put the thought into your firing process as much as your hiring process. Let's talk a little bit about things that you can do once you start to think about it from your own experience, from some of the things we've tried to implement here at Sweetfish, Bill, that folks can do with this, because sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable situation. That's probably part of why we just, we handle it quickly. It's not just because we've listened to the old adage of hire slow, fire fast, which we did a great episode on why some of that you probably need to take with a grain of salt, but you unpacked it there very well, that it's the emotions of it. The firing manager, if you will, to try and coin a new term, is dealing with the frustration of either themselves not being able to help improve the performance, or they feel like, the employee is lacking. But you talk a lot about in making sure that the person who's being let go feels valued, and not just in a fluffy way. Kind of break that down tactically, what that means and how you do that well in the dismissal process.
Well, I'll say this first of all. Oftentimes, when we get to this point toward the dismissal end of things, we can usually look back and see that the hiring process maybe was off, or the decision. We didn't do as good a job on the hiring process as we should have. And so, one thing that we value a lot here at Sweetfish is full transparency and honest, frank conversations. And so I think the first thing is to make sure that as soon as you know that you've got a problem with an employee, that they know. And that doesn't, believe it or not, that doesn't usually happen. Usually you build a case and then all of a sudden go to the employee and address something, and they're surprised, sometimes shocked. And that's always a problem. Nobody who is in that position should ever be surprised or shocked. If that's the case, it's usually the firing manager's issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things talking about making sure that people feel valued is, communicating that no matter who it is, just intrinsically as a person and also as an employee to some organization, everyone has value. Speak a little bit, Bill, in the way that you've seen that done effectively to communicate. That isn't just kind of the placid, we know you're a great person, it just didn't work out here, but really communicating that maybe this wasn't the right fit. Maybe we missed in the hiring process, which we've gone through a process before of letting someone go and realizing that, hey, the way that we communicated what the job would be was off a little bit. And that maybe wasn't the entire reason that this didn't work out, but it was a contributing factor in ways that we do follow up, we communicate that value and what other folks could maybe learn from that process and implement themselves.
Sure. Well, Logan, you're right. Everybody's got value. And so the first thing we do is try to redeploy skills, right? If there's another place or another part of the organization that makes sense, and I've seen Sweetfish do that in a couple instances very successfully. I would say that's more the exception than the rule, but I think that that's one way you show someone value is to say, listen, this isn't a fit, but our first option is not to show you the door, but to show you another way to put those skills to work. So I think that's
move someone from one department to another, or look at, can we restructure their role and their responsibilities in a way that fits with the value that we see that they do deliver in a certain area, right?
Right. And that would be, of course, assuming the fact that the issue is not culture or attitude or work ethic. I mean, those things are very difficult to rehabilitate and sometimes only discovered after you work with somebody for a few weeks or a few months. So I think transparency is important. And then just direct honesty, to be very direct with people about how you perceive the situation and give them a voice. Give them a chance to feedback as well. We're learning just like they are. And so the feedback that people have given us has been helpful along the way. So I think a two-way communication and then outlining a plan of action, giving 30 or 60 days to reform if there's an opportunity to do that before you give up on somebody, and having a very specific plan for that.
Yeah. Talk about this next phase, Bill. If you do try those options, things don't work out, the next phase there, like you said, can be full of emotion. You need to recognize that on both sides, right? The person being let go, being disappointed for a variety of reasons, as well as their direct manager, maybe feeling some frustration, those sorts of things. You've talked about writing letters of recommendation, doing some follow-up after that exit conversation. A lot of people have an exit interview and that's it. Can you speak to some of those things that you've seen done well and how people can maybe use them?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, the exit interview really is for the benefit of the company, the employer. Here's what I've told our HR group, our people ops team. Most people are good at hiring, or at least put significant effort into it. Most people they suck at firing. So let's not suck at firing. Let's become one of the best companies there is when it comes to letting people go. And so again, that has to do with how it's communicated. I had a situation not long ago where we had made a decision on dismissal, and the individual said to me, why can't everybody else seems to get a chance to work into another position. Why can't I have that same position? And I had to be honest with that. And I said, first of all, there's just not another place. There's not another need right now. And secondly, based on what we've talked about, if there were, I would not be able to recommend you for that. So he handled that. He accepted that. It was truthful, but kind. And at the same time, as you mentioned, I offered to write a letter of recommendation. Those are a little bit tricky because you're letting them go for cause. But again, as you mentioned, everybody's got value. Everybody's got something to give, and everybody has a place in this world. And so the last thing I want to do as an employer is put somebody in a position where they go away defeated, deflated, and have a difficult time getting their feet back under them. So we do everything we can to keep that intact. And really the most challenging call I've put out to our people ops group is to schedule a call 30 days after every dismissal. In some ways, that's a big ask because, as you know, if you've ever had the occasion to let somebody go, you're just glad it's over. And you hope you don't run into them in the grocery store, right? And what I would say is, let's handle the dismissal in such a way that we have nothing to apologize for. And in 30 days, make a call, follow up. One of our key values here is love people well. Let's love them well as we say goodbye, just like we love them well as we welcome them to the organization. Because the truth is, at one point in time, everyone will exit, right? So let's concentrate on that process. Let's be intentional and let's love people well.
Man, I love that, Bill. And I just appreciate you so much in different ways that you've helped lead our team and carry the banner along with Ryan and others on our team of loving people well. And I think you summed it up really well. It's really easy to say, hey, we're excited. You're going to be coming on the team. We care about you. We value you. That's very easy. Right.
Yeah.
But to be able to take that step, push through the discomfort or the awkwardness and that sort of follow-up call, it also makes you accountable, because if you know that you're going to make that call in 30 days, you're going to handle that firing conversation, that exit conversation in a different way, because you're going to be accountable to that future situation that you know you're going to put yourself into, as opposed to, well, I can kind of, treat it this way that's not really in line with our values, because I'm not going to see them again. I'm going to avoid them even if we are in the same town. I'm going to switch grocery stores, whatever the case might be. I like the way you put that. I think that's going to bring it home for a lot of people.
Well, I have to note, it is especially difficult to handle it that way when you have a difficult exit. And I understand there are all kinds of situations that exist, but above and beyond all, we want to handle people with respect and kindness.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, this has been a great kickoff to introducing you on the Behind the Curtain series. I'm looking forward to being able to hop on and riff with you. I feel like I learn so much every time I talk to you. We're just going to start recording them, so I'm not the only one gaining from your gray hair and wisdom. And I say that not completely tongue in cheek. It really is true. We do have a lot to learn from those on our team, those in our network that have been through some things, that have some battle scars to show. And I say that with all sincerity, Bill. If anybody listening to this would like to reach out to Bill or myself, you can email us, bill@sweetfishmedia.com, logan@sweetfishmedia.com. Feel free to reach out, connect with us on LinkedIn, or shoot us an email. Also, we are hiring. We are continuing to grow amidst these uncertain times. If anything that you've heard here and following along with what we're doing, how we're growing, how we're approaching our growth here at Sweetfish is intriguing to you, or you just kind of intrigued by being behind the scenes in podcast production and the things that we're doing for marketing teams, feel free to reach out to us. You can send an email to Ryan@sweetfishmedia.com. Ryan Drawdy is our director of culture and people ops, and is managing a lot of these things and making sure that we love people well, onboarding, offboarding, all of these sorts of things. As always, thank you so much for listening.
I hate it when podcasts incessantly ask their listeners for reviews, but I get why they do it, because reviews are enormously helpful when you're trying to grow a podcast audience. So here's what we decided to do. If you leave a review for B2B Growth in Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of the review to james@sweetfishmedia.com, I'll send you a signed copy of my new book, Content-Based Networking, How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. We get a review, you get a free book. We both win.